Yeah, loud
Yes,
and clear.
That's great. Thank you to all who have joined today. I think that we'll get started. We have a couple of people from our network. A little bit of echoing. Try to work on that.
can everyone see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Can you see anything else?
Can we put the slides full screen?
Yes. Where? View present. Okay. Is this good?
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Abdussamia, for introducing yourself. If others would like to put a quick note into the chat box to introduce themselves, feel free to. I'll start by introducing myself and Partners Jordan. But I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for taking the time to come and learn and listen about research that we'd like to present to you related to Currencies Crowdfunding in the Civic sector in the MENA region. My name is Sanat Yassin and I'm the program manager at Partners Jordan. Partners Jordan is a Jordanian civil society organization working to build effective civic collaborations between civil society, the government, and different state and non-state actors as a way to support greater social and economic development in Jordan, but also in the region. Partners Jordan is proud to be an incubator for the MENA hub for the Innovation for Change initiative. And I would like to tell you a little bit about the work that we do. So I'm seeing from the participants, we have several participants who are members of the hub or members of the hub staff or incubators, and a couple of names that are unfamiliar to me. So hopefully we have some new people joining us that are interested in the work we're doing. So the Innovation for Change initiative is to build a sort of global, it's just to take a global approach to the closing of civic spaces that we see happening around the world by establishing a series of regional hubs, which will build a network that is that has an entire sort of governance structure and that will have resources to be able to implement activities that can meet the needs of civil society in different regions in the world that they will then use to address the closing of civic spaces and the shrinking of civic space that's ongoing. So there are 7 hubs, of which the MENA hub is one of those, the Middle East and North Africa. The North Africa hub, and our mission is to build a collaborative, innovative network of activists and CSOs in the region who are capable to facilitate the exchange and development of expertise and resources to face the shrinking of civic space. Our vision is to create a free and secure civic space, and we focus on rights and human rights related to the freedom of association and assembly and freedom of speech and freedom of the media. Among others. So that's a little bit about the work that we do, and the way that we do it is by mobilizing resources and implementing activities in the region, whether they are capacity building trainings, knowledge sharing or knowledge creation activities, or conducting innovative sort of groundbreaking research like the research that we're presenting to you today that can help to equip civil society with the tools that it needs in order to protect itself, essentially. The different thematic areas that we work in include advocacy and campaigning, digital security, accountability and transparency, knowledge management, and civil society resourcing. And in particular, in regards to civil society resourcing, an approach called sharing economy. Since 2000 and I would say 17, Partners Jordan has been implementing activities or preparing for the implementation of activities that support the growth of the hub and contribute to the needs of the region. We have several other incubators in the region in Tunis, Morocco, Iraq, Lebanon, and some others that are then also implementing activities that support the work of the hub. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about our work on digital currency. So as of 2018, we have been conducting research on digital currencies and crowdfunding in the MENA region to explore the potential for tools or creating pathways or alternative pathways for resourcing civil society. And we began with focusing on the countries of Morocco, Tunisia, Jordan, and Lebanon. And we have conducted research and different types of focus groups and trying to understand what the field is and conducting an assessment of that. In March 2019, we focused on a regional-wide mapping of the sharing economy platforms in the region. And we can tell you a little bit more about sharing economy platforms maybe later But since 2020, we've been working on setting up a sharing economy platform, and we've been conducting the second phase of the MENA research on digital money and crowdfunding in the region. And we've sort of expanded that research into closed spaces, and the countries that we've focused on are Egypt, Palestine, Algeria, and the Gulf countries. So with that said, that's just a little bit of an introduction to the work that Innovation for Change in the MENA region is doing, and a little bit of work that Partners Jordan has been doing. And we would like to introduce you to our two researchers that will present the research and findings and be able to give you a little bit more of a specific overview of the context, and the methodology, and the results, and the future work. And followed by that, we will have a question and answer session. So I'll start by introducing Shuruk Kawarik. Shuruk Kawarik is the co-founder of Rumman, a financial technology company that focuses on financial education, financial research, and providing financial saving tools for those traditionally unable to afford it. Prior to founding Rumman, Shuruk conducted research with SMEX on the topic of crowdfunding and civic spaces in the MENA region. She has recently completed a research on individual philanthropy and crowdfunding in the arts and culture section in the region as well. Shuruk is also the co-founder of indiepush.com, an online music platform that empowers independent artists from the MENA region in terms of distribution, discovery, and income generation, which was founded in 2014. She's also one of the first employees of Pinchpoint Incorporated, Palestine's first gaming studio, where she worked for 2 years on customer acquisition and user behavior analytics. Shuruk holds a bachelor's degree in human development and social relations from Earlham College, Indiana in the US, and an MBA and a master's in a master's of science in finance from Queen Mary University in London, where she wrote research in the field of behavioral finance, specifically about the nature of price bubbles in the Middle Eastern stock markets. So welcome, Shuruk. And I'd like to introduce Eric Asmar, who has been working for 12 years at the intersection of technology, culture, and society in the United States, Europe, and the MENA region. Eric has a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in international development. As CEO at Happy Smala, he advises startups, corporations, CSOs, IOs, and public institutions on issues of innovation, digitalization, and collaborative finance. He also collaborates with numerous startup support programs as a coach, mentor, and trainer, and lectures on entrepreneurship at the ESSEC Business School. Welcome, Shuruk and Eric, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Let me just get this back on track. Thank you, Snap, for the introduction. I'm Shuruk, and Eric and I were very happy working on this research together. And we're happy to be here sharing what we found with you guys. So I want to start with just a very quick overview of how we looked, or like the lenses we looked at the research with. One of them was financial technology as an umbrella, which is the technology basically that helps banks become better. That's an unofficial term, but it's basically tech-enabled products and services that improve the traditional financial system. They're usually associated with three services: lending, capital raising, and payment solutions. They include crowdfunding platforms, peer-to-peer lending networks, and cryptocurrencies. In the MENA region, the sector is dominated by what is called first wave sectors, which is financial technology that facilitates payments, lending, capital raising, and money transfers. And these, as we all know, are still not mature in the MENA in any way. Next will be next wave, or second wave, will be hopefully the introduction of more wealth management tools and blockchain technology, which gets us to the more relevant part to our research, which are digital currencies. So digital currencies can basically be defined as the monies used via the internet. So any type of payment method which exists only in electronic form, and it's not tangible. Digital currency can be transferred between entities or users with the help of technology like computers, smartphones, and the internet. Now, some functionalities for digital currencies include electronic bill payments and money transfers. Cryptocurrencies are the subcategory of digital currencies, and they use blockchain technology and blockchain technology derives from the field of cryptography, and it secures transactions usually in a decentralized manner. Eric will now go through crowdfunding with you. Sorry. Eric?
Hello. Can we move to the next slide, please? There we go. So a quick overview of crowdfunding. So essentially, crowdfunding consists of financing a personal, social, or entrepreneurial project by raising small amounts of money from very large groups of people. And in the past 10 to 15 years, this has been done increasingly through online platforms. There are 4 general categories of crowdfunding. 2 of those 4 are generally relevant to civil society, while 2 are more focused on entrepreneurs. So the most, we'll say, famous form of crowdfunding is donation-based. So backers, people who contribute to the campaigns, will support a cause, any variety of cause, and if there is a reward, it's a very symbolic reward. So the most famous platforms working in this space are GoFundMe in the United States, which finances personal projects, for example, to pay someone's medical bills or something along those lines. There's Cotizi in Morocco, which focuses on financing civil society and humanitarian initiatives, and Zumal in Lebanon. Then we have rewards-based or pre-sale platforms, which are contributions in exchange for a gift or a product. So these gifts or products are not necessarily priced at market value. So you may be paying more or you may be paying less than the gift or the product would actually cost, but you contribute to support the entrepreneur or the cause. The most famous American platform is Kickstarter, and in Morocco we have Wuluj. The other 2 categories, as I said, are primarily focused on entrepreneurs. We have crowd lending. So those are contributions to a peer-to-peer loan, which may or may not have interest. Most famous platform in the region working on crowd lending is Liwa in Jordan. And then we have equity, so contribution to buy shares in a company. So it's not an initial public offering. It's not a public trading of shares. They're limited to a specific group of people within the campaign, and depending on the platform, that could be your average person, or it could be open only to accredited investors. In the region, we have Affinity and Afriquity in Morocco and Tunisia, respectively, who are kind of the most well-known platforms. Go to the next slide, please. So the global market for crowdfunding is around 3.27 billion on donation rewards-based crowdfunding specifically. According to research that we conducted a few years ago, between 2009 and 2015, around $9 million was raised via crowdfunding in the Southern Mediterranean, the majority of which was, again, donation rewards-based. I'm excluding lending and equity because it inflates the numbers significantly. These are much larger tickets, but they're not in this context relevant to civil society. Moving right along to our results. So this is the sort of a recap of 2 phases of research that cover Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and GCC countries. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to give you sort of global oversight overviews of the trends and the challenges with a few specific examples from different countries. And we'll be publishing the results of the study soon, which will give you an opportunity to get a more detailed overview on a country-by-country basis. Next slide, please. So the bottom line, there are still significant barriers to wide-scale adoption of digital currencies by civil society in the region. Those barriers are not insurmountable, and we'll get into a little bit more detail here about what the current challenges are and what are the opportunities that we can capitalize on to overcome these challenges. Shoruk, I will let you talk about the state of digital currencies in the startup ecosystem.
Hi again. So like Eric said, we have conducted this research in 8 countries, but generally the research was in 2 parts. Phase 1 dealt with relatively closed countries, and now we move to relatively more open countries according to the Civic definitions. The opposite, sorry. But in any way, we didn't find major discrepancies in terms of the environment for applying digital currencies and crowdfunding for the benefit of civil society. So these challenges are more or less global in the MENA region, but we will try to give specific examples on some countries. So basically, the regulatory environment for payments and for blockchain are unfriendly at best and banned at worst in most of the countries. Cryptocurrency dealing is banned, and the freedom to transfer money in the region, either on an individual or an organizational level, is also difficult. There's also a lack of market adoption of digital payment generally. So people don't use it, organizations don't use it, government don't use it as well, although that's on the rise. Some governments like Jordan are actually integrating digital payment solutions and e-wallets to allow the payment of governmental bills and utility bills. Some countries are also following that path, but that's still not very significant in terms of adoption. There's also a lack of knowledge of cryptocurrencies and digital payments among the masses and specifically among civil society. So, and there's not the tech, let's say the tech sector that knows technically the applications of different digital currencies, including cryptocurrencies. They're not really talking to each other with civil society. So there isn't that rapid exchange of information. As for the opportunities, governments in the Gulf, for example, have adopted blockchain technology as a like an efficiency measure for major industries, and we hope that that might help or lead other governments to follow example. Blockchain can be good towards civil society because it offers transparency in financial activities. So if we employ financial softwares on or financial transactions on the blockchain, it allows transparency, which is better for both attaining donations and for keeping records. It also provides an opportunity for having decentralization of data, meaning the potential power of big data holders like Google and Amazon can be kind of limited. So organizations would have more control over where their data is centered. There's also a rapid global technology development in the digital currencies. So the region will catch up eventually, hopefully with this network's help. And there are also great global examples of big humanitarian organizations such as UNICEF who are accepting cryptocurrency as donations and not converting it to regular or what we call fiat money like other organizations. So there are leading examples on kind of legitimizing the use of cryptocurrency and other digital money tools in the humanitarian sector. As for the startup ecosystem in general, in the MENA region, there's a lot of buzz around it. A lot of ecosystem stakeholders are currently being developed, such as accelerators and hubs and entrepreneurship departments at ministries, but complex regulations remain a problem and they limit the growth of digital platform across the region. There's also a big problem of talent migration. So local technical talent, any experienced one gets quickly, recruited by either outsourcing companies or actual companies in Europe and in the United States. And even though there is ecosystem stakeholders, they are all quite inexperienced themselves because it's a new, let's say a new business in the region. So that still limits the growth potential. But the opportunities really is that there are growing investment and entrepreneurial support across the region. So that provides the civic space, new spaces for collaboration. Since the ecosystem is still growing, there's space that a building block of this could be a collaborative approach between whoever is developing technology to make life somehow more efficient in our daily lives. Then maybe civil society can now connect with this ecosystem before it becomes solid. And I will move the mic to Eric. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. A bit more of a deep dive about crowdfunding. So there are similar challenges around crowdfunding as there are for the tech sector in general and around the deployment of digital currencies, but we can say crowdfunding is a little bit more advanced in a number of ways. So the first challenge is regulatory barriers that cover simultaneously civil society financing and crowdfunding platforms that vary significantly across the region. So there are some countries where it is next to impossible to launch a crowdfunding campaign and receive funds. For example, Algeria. And there are other countries like Lebanon and inshallah soon Morocco and Jordan that have a lot more openness to the use of crowdfunding and to the operation of crowdfunding platforms. Another challenge is, as Shuruk had mentioned, an underdeveloped international and local payment infrastructure. So the region is just starting on mobile money. Platforms like PayPal, for example, are just getting started in the region. Of course, this varies from country to country, but overall, these are just getting started. And part of it is due to regulatory issues, and part of it is due to my next point, which is low level of local trust in digital platforms and payments. The region is generally a very cash-based economy, and people are hesitant to use online platforms to make payments. To give an example, 80% of card transactions in Morocco in particular are ATM withdrawals. So less than 20% are transactions by card that are online or even paying by card at a store or a restaurant. In North Africa in particular, that's Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and to a lesser extent Egypt, there are constraints due to monetary policy. So many North African currencies are non-convertible, which is a challenge for crowdfunding platforms that are trying to collect funds from a number of different countries and channel them to a civil society initiative or an entrepreneur in a given country. However, on the opportunity side, there are very high levels of internet and mobile penetration in the region, as opposed to, for example, sub-Saharan Africa, where penetration levels are lower. Coverage is also extremely high in a number of these countries, meaning that a good portion of the geography of a given country has access to 2G or 3G, if not 4 or 5G. There's a very high level of engagement from the international community. According to our studies, the majority of contributions to MENA crowdfunding campaigns come from diaspora networks. There's also rapid evolution. So despite regulatory barriers, there have been regulatory evolutions. The Tunisian Startup Act, there's also a Tunisian crowdfunding law that is coming, and a Moroccan crowdfunding law that Bismillah has worked on, and we're collaborating with the Morocco hub for I4C SimSim on some lobbying efforts to push forward this particular piece of legislation. And on a more kind of a cultural society level, there are very deeply ingrained local cultures and practices of community financing. So for example, zakat, or what economists call rotating savings and credit associations. In Morocco, they call them darets. In Tunisia, they call them daira. And in the Middle East, they call them gameya or jameya. So these are all forms of crowdfunding. So from a psychological, social, cultural perspective, these practices are ready to be digitized. We don't need to teach people how to crowdfund. We just need to get them to trust online platforms to do what they're already doing. Moving right along, on the civil society front. So the baseline, and this was part of Sana's introduction, civic space is shrinking across the region. There are increasing limitations on the areas and ways that civil society can operate, obviously at differing levels and in different spaces in different countries, but civic space is shrinking. There are also increasing controls on CSO funding, particularly foreign CSO funding, usually under the pretext of anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism financing regulation. So that has a significant, well, I think the majority of you work in civil society, you've probably felt the impact of these increasing controls on receiving funds, particularly from foreign donors. And there's a limited awareness of technology and limited tech literacy among civil society organizations in the region. Now the opportunities, there is, despite this limited awareness and literacy, there's a strong interest in technology from CSOs, and quite a bit of this is also being driven by donor organizations that are increasingly willing to dedicate funds to capacity building and to tools and skills development around technology. And there are some very successful tech pilot programs in the civic sector. So the first is, I believe it's UNFPA. So there's a cryptocurrency program in Zatari refugee camp in Jordan, where Syrian refugees don't have cards, they don't have cash, but they make their purchases within parts of the camp using cryptocurrency that's attached to a biometric ID. So their their wallet travels with them, and it can't be stolen from them, and they have a clear transaction history, and transactions are traceable and secure. SimSim in Morocco has worked on a number of different platforms around civil society, and the I4C network in general is piloting a number of different civil society focused platforms around accountability, around public policy analysis, around petitions, around communication. The I4C website is an excellent example of these kinds of initiatives. There's Yumkin in Egypt, which works on crowd solving. So it's a platform specifically designed to bring innovation to social and impact-driven organizations. And for example, in Build Palestine, that works on facilitating crowdfunding and mobilizing the diaspora and supporters of Palestinians around the world through tech. A few words on future work. Shuruk, I'll let you start.
All right, so I will speak about, so I hope the overview of some of the things that came up in our research was good. Our research led us to a few areas of recommendations for civil society and for the I4C network. I will speak about coalition building and policy advocacy. So research and interviews indicated that civil society and the tech-based entrepreneurship ecosystem are disconnected from each other, as I mentioned. This, in part, is due to perceived ideological differences, which we believe can be overcome by establishing common areas of work and understanding. Things like local networking, collaboration platforms, and crossover events can really bring together the two sectors. This could include also a series of thematic boot camps and events in each country where civil society actors meet tech-based startups working in the same field and work on a certain goal for a weekend or 3 days. The regional social entrepreneurship startup ecosystem organizes these types of events regularly, actually, and national social entrepreneur support programs could serve as effective partners to bring civil society that are not already involved in the tech scene with entrepreneurs who might give solutions, like Coinsense. I see that we have Coinsense in the crowd. So maybe in the Q&A, Coinsense can tell us a little bit about their project. As for policy advocacy, we think that both civil society actually and the entrepreneurship sector, the startup sector, can work together on common policy advocacy efforts around issues like foreign funding, crowdfunding, privacy rights, and access to information. Startups can be more critical of government policies than CSOs because their position are more apolitical than civil society. So CSOs can also leverage their experience in policy advocacy to formulate recommendations and navigate local political and institutional challenges. And the startups could be a good ally in this sphere. For example, I4C's political accountability platform can serve as a tool to raise awareness and mobilize actors in both spheres. Eric, you want to take the e-learning and sharing economy?
Yes. So as we stated, civil society as a whole has a lack of awareness and understanding and skills around digital currencies, the mechanisms around them, but also around tech in general. We found the rate of digitalization of your average CSO in the region is relatively low. And this kind of knowledge is a building block to establishing and developing and utilizing more sophisticated tools, for example, cryptocurrencies or other kinds of online platforms in the civic space. So what we propose is we can organize a series of trainings, maybe through e-learning sessions around subjects like blockchain, finance, fintech, their applications in civil society. This webinar can be counted as part of this work, and more specific and more technical workshops for CSOs that are looking to implement some of these technologies in their work. And this can be done through the I4C platform, through other online learning platforms like edX, like Coursera, and accompanied by toolkits, manuals, etc. And they can also cross over with some of the events that Shoruk mentioned when she was talking about coalition building. Another potential space for collaboration is around the sharing economy. Sana spoke a little bit about the sharing economy initiative. Crowdfunding falls under the sharing economy. So this is a model that is common to both startups and to civil society organizations. So for example, the sharing economy that I4C is currently developing could be opened up to startups. The most base level would be exchange of information and services between these organizations. So for example, a startup that has good communications capacity could help a CSO with developing their skills and developing, for example, a communications campaign. And in exchange, a civil society organization can help a startup organize focus groups or beta tests to test their platform within a given community of potential clients or beneficiaries. And from there, you can scale this up. So this fits into capacity building. It also gives sort of concrete grounds for collaboration around given issues, whether those are policy issues or whether those are issues more related to the day-to-day activities of CSOs and startups. And from there, you can use this to build more technology and other types of collaboration through these common networks. So that is all from our side. We wanted to give you lots of time to ask us questions. Right now, I believe we have...
On timing.
Yeah, we did do well on time. We
Perfect.
didn't talk too much.
The first Arabs to do that.
Yeah, that's a track record,
I'm
guys.
kidding. It's okay. I can make fun of us.
Thank you very much for that great presentation. Would you guys like me to help with the supporting moderation? I'm happy to do that with the Q&A.
Yes. Sure.
Sure. Maybe we start with chat questions just to keep things simple.
Great.
If you have a more complicated question, then you can raise your hand in the chat, and we can turn on your mic and let you ask us questions.
Sounds great.
So fire away, everyone.
Thank you. So as the questions come in, I do have a question on my mind that I'd like to ask. I'd like to hear from you guys about specifically like the feasibility of a potential like digital currency tool that civil society. So you referred to some of these examples. How feasible is it, and could you give us, you know, sort of like if there's like a timing that comes to mind?
I think, I mean, if we're talking about an I4C feasibility, we can talk about that, but maybe this would be good to let Karim speak about CoinSense. I see he says
Sure.
I would be happy. Because it's, I mean, he can speak about it, but it's if I'm not mistaken, cryptocurrency-based ecosystem for organizations to share something. Karim.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just to present CoinSense, which is an open source platform we have built recently. And this was funded by the UNICEF Innovation Fund. And the platform is a collaboration platform where communities can create their own currencies. As example, for example, innovation for change. You can really, in 5 minutes, issue your own currency and enable your community to allocate these coins to projects and to share resources and to engage more people in projects within the community. And this is the platform. We have conducted several pilots in Tunisia. We have like 1,200 members. And we are now in the phase of distributing. We received ETH from this crypto fund from UNICEF. And now we would be happy to share, if you try the platform and tell us what changes you might need to introduce own currencies. And of course, we can also support your proposals with ETH if you want to contribute also to this ecosystem. Mainly, it's really an easy platform enabling collaboration.
And how hard was it to launch? Like, can you tell us like a minute about the journey to launching, given the regulations and the...
we are issuing the coins. We don't have any problem with regulation because we say that the coins is a contribution indicator. It means if you issue an innovation for change coin, you will give it to people as a proof of their contribution to the impact you are generating. And you are not giving any commitment that this is a currency and it can be exchanged. It's a contribution indicator, but people within the network use it to exchange a value. So the issuer is not giving, as long as you don't give a financial commitment and people accept the coin and say, okay, I don't accept from you any monetary reward, this is not an issue. And that's why we are like issuing the currency. It's maybe we should not call it currency, it's a contribution indicator, but you can use it as a currency within the network. Till now, we didn't have any issue. I even talked with the governor of the central bank in Tunisia. He didn't see any regulatory issue. He couldn't understand why we need other currencies. And because he said, why do you don't use the regular money? But as we know, there is no money for social impact. But we have no issues with this. And we try to, of course, be compliant, to meet the compliance requirements from regulator. This is needed.
Thank you for sharing, Karim. This is Raja from the MENA Hub as well. I think it's a really great idea, the one that you're using as a local currency within your platform. I think it also joins the sharing economy platform that the MENA Hub is working on. It's rather like a currency that you get in exchange of a service that you put on a platform. So technically it's like for the exchange of values, as you have mentioned. Maybe technically it doesn't get converted to a local currency, like a real one, but it's just there for sharing economy purposes, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, got you. Thanks.
But in case it gets in the future also converted, there are ways to also to meet the regulatory requirements and taxation. So I think at the moment, especially as it's a grassroots movement, regulators do not care about it. They get attention when it becomes too big. And in this moment, you are able to also to talk with the regulators and meet also the needs of democratic rules.
Cool. I think that's interesting. Maybe we should connect more and try to see any synergies between the different platforms we have and your case studies. It's really something interesting that we should explore.
With pleasure. We are looking for communities because to work on different pilots, because this is the biggest challenge. The challenge is neither technical nor regulatory. The challenge is to engage people and start using new solutions. And it's the shift in mindset is very important. And this is, of course, the biggest challenge for us. Yeah, let's stay in contact.
Thank you, Karim.
My email address in the chat.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karim.
So we have a series of questions in the chat group. Eric and Sharuk, do you want to address some of them?
Sure. Well, actually, the first question about the publication of the research, I'll let the I4C team speak to that.
So we are, thank you for the question, Albert. We are in the finalizing stages of the report, and following that, we plan to be publishing it within a few weeks, and we'll be distributing it. So you'll be able to find it on our platform. If you are a member of the Innovation for Change network, then you can access it. It'll be posted in our resources, the resources part of our website. If you're not a member, we encourage you to sign up for the Innovation for Change network, and you can apply to become a member and have access to our platform. But we will also be sharing it a little bit more widely. I believe on our Facebook page, etc., which we have. So definitely, I think we'll also have the emails of. We should have your contact information for this webinar, and if so, we can also inform all of the participants when it's published as well.
Okay, moving on. There's a couple of questions from Luana. So first about initiatives that are looking to change, transform the cash-based economy. There are a number. Some of them are government-backed. In any case, there's always a degree of public sector implication because we're dealing with cash, and that means we deal with central banks. There are mobile wallet initiatives that are being deployed all over the region. For example, I can speak to Morocco. There are now 15 companies, banks, telecom operators, and others that have licenses to launch their own mobile wallets. And built into those mobile wallets is peer-to-peer transactions, so you can send money to friends, family, whoever, and also the ability to pay your bills through these systems. So for example, to pay your electricity bill, your phone bill, to pay your taxes. And we've seen, I can't remember in which country, but there are a few initiatives to push public subsidies, for example, reimbursements on your health costs or payments to public sector employees, etc., that they're trying to push through digital platforms, either through online banking, which is a first step, but also through these kinds of mobile platforms. There's also a number of different startups that are looking to tackle this from different angles. So some are pure mobile payment platforms, so to make it easy for you to turn your cash into some kind of digital currency, whether it's a cryptocurrency or just an online bank type platform, and to be able to withdraw it to cash it back out. And some are focused on more specific use cases. For example, Happy Smeda last year launched a startup called Civic that is focused on digitizing Jamia, savings circles. So starting by allowing users to use cash transactions and pushing them to use mobile payment or digital payment solutions down the line. Shoruk, are there any other initiatives that are worth mentioning that I haven't covered?
I think I agree with you. No, maybe Digitus. Do you know Digitus in Tunisia, for example? That was adopted by the Tunisian Post, I think, eventually. It was also a real currency-based blockchain network for exchange of money. And the Tunisian Post, for example, adopted it. But it kind of still has a cash to digital money to cash cycle. But overall, I think in general, governments all want to turn societies cashless, but I think the way is a bit long. And if I want to think of the outlook for this, I would think that this society naturally will become cashless, the Middle East, in not in the next 5 years, but maybe in the next 25. But I think it's not going to go to the regular banking sector. It will go straight to a digital economy type of infrastructure, I think. So it will become cashless and it will kind of not be banked anyway.
And and we see examples of this, for example, in East and West Africa. So you have platforms like M-Pesa that have been very successful and now outpace banks in terms of the number of financial transactions going through them. And because they're mobile-based, they can touch a much larger population that doesn't necessarily have access to banking infrastructure. All you need is a phone. And in some cases, the platforms are set up so that multiple users can use the same phone. So the barriers to entry are much lower on these kinds of platforms. What else do we have in questions?
Organizations are limited by regulations and reporting requirements. How prevalent is the use of digital currencies among social movements in the region? I would say not prevalent. I think the adoption of cryptocurrency specifically is still with a select few. Some of them might be working in social movements, but it's still a very low adoption. I would say that, but for example, in Gaza, it's being used more heavily than in other places because of the siege. So they're using more cryptocurrency to get paid for freelance jobs, basically, that are conducted through the internet. And I think the New York Times tried to report it as terrorist money laundering money because of the very high volumes compared to other cities in the region. But a different study by a Coin Monitor, I think, I'll recheck the reference, found that no, it's actually mostly for freelance jobs on the internet. So it's not a social movement, but it's a way of coming around physical sieges. But I don't know another example of extensive use in the region. Eric?
I agree. There are significant cryptocurrency trading markets in the region. Even though they're illegal, there are still a few trading centers in the region, but those are generally not connected to specific movements. These are just individuals who are like the freelancers in Gaza who are trading cryptocurrencies for products and services, or to a lesser degree for financial speculation. The Reem has a question about cryptocurrencies being secure and transparent. Without getting into too long a discussion on kind of the technical pieces, essentially cryptocurrencies work on what we call distributed ledger technologies. Imagine that everyone is writing on one giant piece of paper. Everyone has an identical copy of the record of transactions. And there are mechanisms in place to make it very difficult to change the record. So there are different technologies behind it, consensus-based, or what we call proof of work, where you have computers solving very complicated math problems to make sure that no one can modify the transaction history. So in that sense, it's transparent because everyone has a copy of the ledger. Everyone can see the entire history of the transactions, and depending on the cryptocurrencies, those are anonymous, which means that you have a wallet, a unique financial ID that is not tied back to you as a person. People can see who you sent money to, but they don't know who you are, and they don't know who the other people are. And it's secure for the same reasons, because you have one common ledger that people cannot, it's extremely complicated to modify this common record of transactions. So this is sort of blockchain technology in general. It's not exclusive to digital currencies. There are also applications of blockchain technology, for example, in the medical sector. So you can use a blockchain as a register of medications. So every medication has a specific ID, and everywhere it travels, you can update the register, so you can make sure that the medications aren't entering the black market, or that there aren't fake medications, which is a problem in some parts of the world. There are also some examples, I think in Rwanda, they're looking to do land tenure this way. So in areas where you have very complicated systems to figure out who owns what land, they're moving all of this onto a blockchain. So you have one single register that's not controlled necessarily by an institution, but it's a piece of technology that is completely transparent as to who owns what piece of land. If someone sells their land, then it gets updated in the register, and you don't have conflicts because two people can't show up with two different copies of a document. Any other questions?
I think Rabi is raising his hand. Perhaps he has a question.
Okay, can someone turn on his mic?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to move from Karim's point regarding some kind of internal currency that can be shared within a network but not transferred into money, and only a network can use it. I'm going to use what I have been thinking about for a very long time, which is the gaming industry. the online gaming industry, where there is a network of people playing one game and gaining credits through that game. So through the game, they can transfer credits between each other. But if someone doesn't have enough credits and they want to move on, they can buy those credits with real money. So if that is to overcome legal and social barriers, is that a model that civil society can adopt to create some kind of internal credits within themselves? But if one needs more credits, they can buy those credits, or if some CSOs have some services that they can provide for the general public, where the general public can buy credits with real money. So in this way, there could be some kind of creative methods of fundraising.
Yeah, can I add some of this?
Go ahead.
Yes, our approach in Coins we're saying, okay, if people, the only thing they have to get coins is money. So we say, okay, if association get that via crowdfunding the coins, they can donate to the association the money and get the coins. So it's we don't sell the coins, but the association or the projects, the social projects, can get, of course, always get the money and give the coins as a contribution indicator. And this is our approach, how to fund, of course, initiatives also with the real money. So that's how we do it in our case.
So yes, Rami, I think to answer your question, that is possible, and I think that is somewhere in between what the I4C sharing economy platform is aiming to do and what CoinSense is aiming to do. Once you inject real money into the system, you face certain regulatory challenges, but they're not insurmountable. The challenge in that case would be sort of adapting it to the legal framework of the given country, about how you need to track the cash coming in and coming back out.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay, maybe just a little remark. The regulation is especially problematic when you make a coin convertible to local money. And this is the only issue where mostly people could get in trouble when they issue currency. When they say we have a fund with and we exchange it. And this is something which can be easily avoided.
Yes, so long as it doesn't come back out in cash. So then the challenge is just about what kinds of products and services you can get. So for example, if a CSO is just exchanging services and products within the network, it's not an issue. But for example, if they need to buy office supplies or food or transportation services or pay for office space, then those other vendors also need to be integrated in some way into the network so that you don't need the cash out.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is, like, while the digital currencies and also crowdfunding are really new things into the civil society world, I would like also to inquire about the campaigning efforts needed by civil society in order to push forward to the integration of these tools. Like through the research, and it was really funny to see how like digital currencies are tapping into different perspectives. You have the regulations, we have the banking system, we have the authorities, and we also have, for some reason, the religious leaders. Like our religion is somehow linked also to cryptocurrencies, and there are also other social dimensions. Like in the research also that Shuruq and Eric conducted for this phase, some of the imams in the region have been saying that cryptocurrencies are haram, and also like the exchange of services, sharing economy, these are principles that are also embodied in some of the religions. How can we like sort of work on a campaigning that is strong enough to reach everyone, including those people, the social, like society, the public, the religious leaders, and everyone, so we can like the message would be heard?
Yeah. Maybe
that's a great question. Well, there is, I can't remember which, so Shuruk and I actually recently met a startup that is working on payday loans in Jordan, so basically advances on people's paycheck that is certified halal because they trade in palm oil. And there's also a cryptocurrency in the Gulf, I forget in which country, that is also supposed to be certified halal.
Because it's backed by gold, so
yes,
it's
backed by
kind
gold.
of less speculative.
I mean, and
But
it
I
sort of
mean,
defeats
I
the
think
purpose of cryptocurrency, but if that's the necessary bridge, that's a place to go. I think this goes into what Shuruk was saying about collaboration with the startup sector, because these challenges are common, specifically financial challenges. And Shuruk and I are both in the startup world and in the civil society world. The funding challenges are very similar. A startup looking to talk to an investor and secure funding from an investor the process is very similar to civil society organizations looking for donor funding. And the challenges that they face around kind of the day-to-day monetary transactions and how they secure funds and how they manage funds is similar. So there's space for business interests and civil society interests to collaborate on pushing through these agendas. From the religious perspective, I agree it's something very interesting. If anyone knows an open-minded imam that would like to talk to us, I think maybe there's something to pull from the countering violent extremism community who also engage a lot with religious leaders to kind of understand how they engage with those religious communities.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the Islamic finance sector is not small, right? So finance, the modern financial economy has been based on things that were also deemed halal in the haram in the beginning, right? By religious leaders. And then Islamic finance kind of found solutions to that. So it won't be very hard if we convince governments and central banks to adopt the technology for them to also know how to, reach out more to the masses. But the idea is to get to these, one, and I think, like mentioned, collaboration with the technology world, collaboration with the tech entrepreneurs would be very beneficial, because it would be a very strong voice together to first kind of be able to explain the technology and also its benefits to society in general, not only in the business world. So maybe that's one way advocacies can start.
One thing what could be done is designing a currency with some religious leader where you can implement the Islamic taxation rules as a smart contract, for example, ensuring that people pay zakat and all these things. And you can also design an ecosystem where, for example, the currency cannot be spent in the bar, for example, by saying, okay, there are only approved accounts. And this is something which becomes suddenly attractive to a religious leader because they say, okay, currency is only circulating in Islamic economy. And this could be then interesting.
Thank you, guys.
Halal currency.
Like, someone said something? Oh, okay. Any other questions?
Final call.
Yeah, final call.
Going once.
Great. As I said, if you're interested, you can put your email, and we'll make sure that when the research is finalized and ready to be distributed, we will send it out to you. If you could put that in the chat, that would be great. Thank you for those who have already done so. I would like to thank all of our participants who've taken the time today to join us and to listen to this research. We hope that it's been beneficial and sort of innovative and gotten a lot of your ideas going and thinking about some of the possibilities for the region, for empowering civil society in innovative ways in order to be able to arrive at the resources that we desperately need, despite being in the context that we're at the shrinking civic space. I'd also like to thank the researchers who've done a really excellent job presenting the research, conducting and presenting the research. And I'd like to thank the staff at the MENA Hub, the staff at Partners Jordan, and our supporters at Counterpart and Civic for the work that they're you're doing as well. And I hope you all have a great day. We will be posting a blog post about this, and we'll be posting the webinar for those who would like to share with others later.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the facilitation, and thank you so much, Eric and Civic. And this was a great exchange with the participants, so great teamwork here, and looking forward to the next steps.
Likewise.
As are we. I'd also like to thank everyone in the network. We did not do this research alone. We conducted a lot of interviews. There were a lot of people, some of whom are in the webinar. Hello, thank you all for your contributions, for your support, for giving us your time and your resources to put this research together.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.